Welcome back to Hot Roster today. Gary and Cam still with you. And as we did yesterday, we are now breaking down one of the cards available to you on HotRoster.com, specifically the Star Quarterbacks card with 6 matchups remaining. Rodgers and Hoyer were on that card, so 6 of 8 still left. And to break that down with Cam and I, we bring in Corey Parson of Scout.com, the fantasy exec. Corey, how's it going, man?
What's going on, fellas? How's everything going? Getting ready for Week 7. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, can't.
Let's hope it's better than that game Thursday night.
Can't be worse than the Thursday night game. So only going up from here. So let's talk about maybe the best matchup available to people on this card, Corey, at least from a star perspective, or how well they've been playing this year at the pivot position. But Tom Brady against the Steelers is a 1.5-point fantasy favorite against Matt Ryan going up against the Chargers. If you go by fantasy points per drop back, these are the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks in the NFL. So how do you distinguish these guys?
Big time matchup in this one right here, fellas. I tell you what, like both quarterbacks a lot this week, maybe in most rankings you'll probably see them as QB1 and QB2 going into the weekend. But what I will say is this: I like the history that Tom Brady has versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I believe something like 17 touchdown passes in the last 5 games. They're the type of guys that are going to go in there, drop the hammer on the Steelers. Now, Matt Ryan has an excellent matchup at home also. But I'll be honest with you, fellas, this is a tough call right here, one of the toughest calls I've seen on the card so far. But I'm actually going to I think Tom Brady covers this one. I think they're going in, they hammer a Pittsburgh Steelers team that's kind of reeling. And I think the Steelers are one of those teams that Brady performs well against historically. So I'm going with Tom Brady on this one.
Yeah, Corey, it's one of those things, too. I know, guys, Atlanta's been awesome, and they've been road warriors, but coming home, dealing with regular things, it's one of those situations. It looks like a pretty matchup, but I lean Tom Brady as well. Hey, Corey, we got an interesting matchup, too. We got Stafford versus Carr here, and when you really break it down, these guys are really close in yards. Stafford has a couple more touchdowns. These guys are within 2 fantasy points of each other, but the big difference is Stafford versus a Washington pasty, it could be shred time, and, I'm looking at Carr. He's a guy that is due for a big explosion. What do you think about this one? I have a slight lean to Stafford. Where are you going?
I think I'm going to agree with you on that one with the slight lean on Stafford. Love what Derek Carr's been doing so far this season. He was a guy I rode in a lot of season-long leagues while I was waiting for Tom Brady to return. But I look at the situation right here, and what jumps out to me is Matt Stafford at home with no running game to speak of. And you got a situation where this game is pick 'em, so you don't really got to pick against the point total or the spread. So I'm going to go with Stafford in the pick 'em contest right here, like Derek Carr this week also. But Matt Stafford, for what we do right here on Hot Roster, is the play that I'm going with this week. He will be one of my selections.
Yeah, Derek Carr, not an ideal matchup necessarily against Jacksonville, but any matchup that's not Kansas City. His career numbers against Kansas City, and it showed through last week. He is not having success against the Chiefs. So let's talk about another 2 quarterbacks. We just mentioned Matt Stafford. Let's go on the opposite side of the ball in that game. Kirk Cousins against Phillip Rivers. I mean, Phillip Rivers so far this season, maybe the raw numbers aren't there, but that San Diego Charger offense is living in the red zone, Corey. And then Kirk Cousins, we talk about red zone stuff. He has not been good in the red zone. Might not have Jordan Reed again this week, which would obviously be an issue in that particular sense. But gets a Detroit Lions defense, which has just given up all the points to quarterbacks so far this year. When Case Keenum drops 30 on you, there's really no defense anymore for that. So do you take the matchup with Cousins or, go with Phillip Rivers, who just is kind of the old stalwart?
I like Cousins this week, but I tell you what, Kirk Cousins tends to perform better at home than he does on the road. And I understand the matchup is tasty in the game where the pace is going to be pushed. It's going to be quickened because of the lack of running backs that Detroit has. So they're going to have to hurry up the pace and score the football a little bit more. But I'm going to go with Phil Rivers in this one, over 300 yards passing 3 of his last 4 games. He gets on that track down there in the A at the Georgia Dome. So I'm going to take Rivers in this one. We like the yardage. We like the volume. We need somebody to get a couple touchdowns. Hopefully Hunter Henry, a guy I have on some of my season-long teams, can be that player.
Yeah, got to love Hunter Henry. He's been great for us. Let's talk about this one. One of my favorite matchups in the quarterback battles. We got Blake Bortles and Andy Dalton, the big ginger. I'll tell you something about Dalton. The last 2 weeks, the guy's on fire. 366 and 366, exactly 366-yard performances. And Bortles, hey, let's talk about it. We got a dream matchup against the Raiders here. What do you think? I don't know. This one's really, really tough, but I actually think Andy Dalton might blow it up again. What are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm a Blake Bortles supporter. I know a lot of people on. He's another guy that's a fantasy enigma. He can tend to go either way. The matchup is plus for him. But Andy Dalton versus the Cleveland Browns. Listen, I think the Browns are giving up something like 30 points a game. Not to mention the fact they're going on the road this week to take on Andy Dalton. the red rifle. He gets Tyler Eifert back in situation. At least fingers crossed, that's what we're hoping for. AJ Green, the whole shebang out there. So light him up, brother. You know what? This one comes in as a pick 'em right here, and I understand the matchup that Bortles has, but I think this is easy pickings right here. I think this is easy money. I think Andy Dalton is the way to go in this one.
I got to agree with you, Corey. I think he and the Bengals put up like 35,
Bortles
38
looks
points
good,
in this
Gary,
game.
but it's one of those things, no, I don't care if it's the Raiders. I'm going with
He's
the red
a lot
rifle.
better at home, though, as we've been talking about a lot. Speaking of that sort of line of thinking, maybe the most trap sort of oriented matchup we have on the card this week, Corey. Drew Brees is the favorite. Now, obviously, Drew Brees brings with him any number of NFL records. You know, we've been dealing with this guy for over a decade now. We know exactly who Drew Brees is, and maybe he's not as good on the road, and Arrowhead is not a favorable place to play either, but you get Drew Brees against Marcus Mariota, who's been QB1 and QB3 the last 2 weeks, rushed for 60-plus yards in those games. You're getting points with Mariota. Do you take him? I mean, it's weird to even think like last season you'd ever take Marcus Mariota over Drew Brees in any sense, but he's been good lately.
Yeah, you know what? I'm taking the Mariota points. I like Mariota in this one. All he has to do is cover that half point. Maybe you get a push out of him. Listen, Marcus Mariota, slow start, struggled to start the season. Now he's starting to look like he's getting his feet under him. The matchup is plus with a helter-skelter coach team who's even more helter-skelter on defense than they are on offense. Drew Brees on the road. Listen, a lot of people are not going to be on this one. I think it's a good way to pivot, come back, get you a nice W in this competition right here. I'm going to take Marcus Mariota to cover on this one. I like it a lot.
Corey, we got about 30 seconds left. We got Jameis Winston versus Tyrod Taylor. We know about the Bills running back situation. It's a little bit cloudy. McCoy banged up. He might play. Gillislee, he's been solid when playing. I'll tell you, though, Winston's in a really, really good matchup here. Are you leaning Jameis or are you going with Tyrod Taylor?
One of my favorite matchups this week is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense this week. Not only do you get Winston at home, but you get him coming off of a bye. I think the young man is recharged, and I like him to go ahead and outscore Tyrod Taylor. I will take Jameis Winston on the hot roster card on this one. One of my plays of the week. I love the kid this week.
Yeah, sometimes he's just line up. I mean, we had Corey on yesterday, talked about how much he loved Mike Evans, so obviously it makes sense.
Exactly.
Love Jameis a little bit too. Corey, thank you so much for taking the time, man. Once again, that's Corey Parson of Scout.com. Read all his work there. Thanks for having us, man.
All right, thanks a lot, fellas. Good luck this weekend, everybody.
Yeah, good luck on your matchups to win some of those cards. Cam.
I agree with a lot of the things he's saying, too. I'm looking there going, wow, that's like almost 80% agreement here.
Well, look, we can talk about cards on Sunday, and we can talk about Jones and want to play those cards, or we can talk about a card that's available to you tonight on HotRoster.com. So breaking down some puck when we come back on Hot Roster today.